It was a quiet night in 2013 when a young couple, Lisa and Mark, moved into their new home. Nestled in the outskirts of a small town in rural England, the house was old, dating back more than a century, and it had a charm that the couple had instantly fallen in love with. The hardwood floors creaked with every step, and the walls were adorned with the kind of faded wallpaper that spoke of history. It was perfect for the two of them, away from the hustle and bustle of city life. At first, everything seemed normal. They settled in, unpacking their things, enjoying the peace and quiet. But as the days went on, there were small things that felt off. The air in the house seemed thick, heavy in a way that was hard to describe. At night, the shadows in the corners of their rooms seemed to stretch unnaturally, as though they had a life of their own. It was just little things, nothing overtly frightening, but enough to make the couple uneasy. One night, after a long day, Lisa and Mark were lying in bed, trying to sleep. The wind howled outside, and the rain pattered against the windows. The sound of the house settling echoed throughout the rooms. It wasn't unusual, but that night, something was different. Lisa was on the verge of sleep when she heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping. At first, she thought it was the rain, but then she realized the tapping wasn't coming from the windows. It was coming from the hallway. Faint, like fingers drumming against the walls. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She nudged Mark awake, whispering, "Do you hear that?" Mark listened carefully, his eyes wide as he heard it too. The tapping continued, growing louder, as if whatever it was moving closer to their bedroom door. Lisa was terrified, but Mark, trying to remain calm, suggested it might be an animal, perhaps a bird or a squirrel, tapping at the window. But Lisa knew better. There was no mistaking the sound. Suddenly, the tapping stopped. The silence was deafening, but before they could relax, a soft creak echoed from the hallway. Mark got out of bed and opened the door, his flashlight cutting through the dark. The hallway was empty, just as they expected, but the air felt wrong, colder somehow. They shrugged it off, telling themselves it was just the house settling again. But the nights that followed were filled with the same eerie noises, footsteps echoing down the hallway, whispers in the dark, and shadows moving just outside their vision. Lisa began to feel watched, her every movement scrutinized by something unseen. She would catch glimpses of a figure out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned to look, there was nothing there. Then, one night, Mark was sitting alone in the living room, reading a book while Lisa was in the kitchen. He had just turned the page when he heard the sound of soft laughter. It wasn't Lisa, she was nowhere near him. He stood up, his heart racing, and called out to her. But there was no answer. The laughter continued, a low, almost mocking sound, echoing through the empty house. Panicked, Mark ran toward the kitchen, but when he entered, Lisa was standing by the window, staring out at the dark night. "What is it?" Mark asked, his voice shaking. "What's going on?" Lisa turned to face him, her expression pale. "I heard it too," she whispered. "The laughter. It's not us. It's something else." That was the turning point. They couldn't deny it anymore. Something in that house was alive, watching them, waiting. They tried to ignore it, but it only grew stronger. The shadows grew darker, the whispers louder, and the cold spots multiplied. One night, while they were both asleep, they were awakened by the sound of a door slamming. They rushed into the hallway, but again, there was nothing there. Just empty rooms, and the cold chill of a house long forgotten by time. They couldn't stay any longer. The house, with its history, its presence, was not something they could live with. They left, and to this day, neither Lisa nor Mark ever spoke of what happened in that house again. But the memory of that cold laughter, the tapping in the dark, and the feeling of being watched, those haunted them for years to come. Years ago, in a small town nestled in the mountains, a family moved into a house that had been abandoned for decades. The house, while worn and weathered, had an undeniable charm. It was large, far too large for the small family of 3, but they didn't mind. It was affordable, and they were eager to start fresh. From the very first night, the family began to experience strange occurrences. It started small, a creak in the floorboards, a door that refused to stay shut, flickering lights. They thought little of it. After all, houses settle, and older homes tend to be a little drafty. But then came the shadows. At night, the mother, Claire, would see them moving at the edge of her vision. Tall, dark shapes that seemed to shift and slither along the walls. When she looked directly at them, they vanished. But they were always there, lurking just out of sight. Claire mentioned it to her husband, but he laughed it off, dismissing her as tired from the move. Then, one evening, while Claire was putting her son, Ethan, to bed, she heard the sound of heavy breathing behind her. She turned to see nothing but the empty hallway. But as she glanced back at Ethan, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Mommy," Ethan whispered, "there's someone in my closet." Claire's heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly toward the closet, her mind racing. She told Ethan it was nothing, but as she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. There, at the back of the closet, was a large, dark shape. Not a person, no, it was something else, something she couldn't describe. It stood still, watching her, as if it had been there for years. The next few days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and increasing unease. Claire became desperate, reaching out to anyone she thought might help. That's when she learned about the history of the house. It had once been a military hospital during the early 1900s, and rumors had swirled about the strange happenings and disappearances that occurred there. But no one had ever confirmed anything. It was just a story. Claire, now certain that something in the house was trying to harm her family, sought the help of a local paranormal investigator. When he arrived, he immediately felt the presence of something powerful, something dark. The investigator set up cameras and equipment throughout the house, hoping to capture something on film. That night, they stayed up, watching the monitors. At first, it was quiet. But then, they saw it. A shadow moving across the hallway, a figure standing in the doorway, its face obscured by darkness. The investigator rushed into the hallway, his flashlight illuminating nothing but empty air. But as he turned back toward the camera, he caught a glimpse of the figure, a tall, thin man, with hollow eyes, standing just behind him. He turned to face the figure, but again, it was gone. The family left the house soon after that. They never returned, and the house was left to decay, its dark secrets buried within its walls. But some say the spirits of the lost soldiers still walk those halls, searching for something they never found. Before we dive into another terrifying tale, I want to take a moment to tell you about an incredible book that's perfect for fans of spooky stories like the ones you've just heard. It's called The Mystery of the Haunted Fort, and it's only $10. This chilling novel follows a group of adventurers as they explore a long-forgotten fort that is said to be cursed. Full of unexpected twists, ghostly encounters, and spine-tingling suspense, it will keep you on the edge of your seat. If you want to immerse yourself in a terrifying tale of haunted history, click the link in the description below to get your copy of The Mystery of the Haunted Fort today. Don't miss out on the chance to read this thrilling story that will haunt you long after you've turned the final page.